This is part 3 of the story. Don't miss the first 2 parts to fully understand this section. I received a text message saying she would answer my questions as briefly as possible. I feared the answers to some of these questions, but I needed to know now. Maybe it would be easier to make a decision, but there was one question I had missed. I took my phone and sent a new text. I have one more question. Who took the first initiative? I didn't get a response to that, but I assumed she might be busy answering my initial questions now. My stomach was in turmoil. I had butterflies. It had been many years since I last felt that. When I met Sophie and when I met my first love, I must have been around 15 years old then. But since then, it had never happened again. Why did I have butterflies now while waiting for the answer? If the butterflies I felt when I was young weren't because I was extremely attracted to my future girlfriend or wife, then what could the butterflies signify? That something decisive was about to happen? At least that was the case right now. The answer I was about to receive would likely determine our future. Maybe that's what the butterflies meant, to signal that a decisive moment was approaching. I was hungry and thought I might have time to eat a little, so I went down to the restaurant. I sat at a table and waited for someone to assist me. There weren't many people inside, and I was helped quite quickly. I ordered fish. I don't remember what kind of fish it was, a white fish, maybe cod. I was close to ordering a beer too, but I managed to restrain myself at the last second and took sparkling lemonade instead. While I sat there, I went over what she had told me the day before. I took out my phone and read the few texts we had exchanged. There weren't any directly explicit messages. Actually, only one went that way, when she admitted what she had done for him the day she came home to me and confessed. I didn't really want to know the details. I was convinced it would make it much harder to forgive her, and I really wanted to forgive her. The problem was that it might not be possible. The posts I had read on this topic were pretty clear-cut. Either you leave or you start to despise yourself, and she also starts to despise you. She sees you as weak because you don't have the backbone to say no. In the midst of these thoughts, the first text from her came, my heart racing. From resting pulse to something resembling the rate you have when running 800 meters. She had written the question and then her answer beneath it. Did you ever think about me when you were sneaking around with this? Her answer,
Yes, maybe not exactly when we were together, but as soon as it was over, I wanted to come home and be with you.
the first text was about what I had imagined. She clearly showed that she thought about me and wanted to be with me. It was absolutely clear that she enjoyed being with me, thought about me, and loved me. My pulse began to calm as I read her text, but the butterflies remained, just as wild as before. My food arrived shortly after, and I began to eat slowly. I wasn't really hungry, but I really should eat. Who knows if I'll get a text soon that will completely ruin my appetite. I started eating mechanically, cutting the food, putting it in my mouth, and chewing. Repeat. I didn't get far. The next text came rushing in. What is the difference between me and him? Her answer,
You are completely different people. You are calm, stable, gentle, loving, and you think about me in every situation you find yourself in. You are a perfect family man and husband, something every woman wants to marry. He is powerful, strong, confident, successful, selfish, and takes what he wants. A woman's dream in the bedroom. I have feelings for both of you, but only you can I imagine having a romantic relationship with.
my stomach tightened. Compared to a chief physician, I was certainly not as successful, but I wasn't a couch potato or a loser either. I had climbed quickly in my career. But other things stung more. Him being powerful, strong, and selfish stung more. And the fact she needed him in bed to be happy made me a little sick. Was it meant that I should treat her worse to make her happy? How is that even possible? When she described him as powerful and strong, she must have meant his personality or presence. Does she see me as weak and feeble? My fingers itched. I wanted to ask her what she meant by that, but I had asked her to keep it brief. And if I asked follow-up questions, I might find out much more than I could handle. I intended to continue eating, but my phone dinged before I could start. Have you ever been unfaithful to me before? Her answer,
No.
short and concise. I believed her. It seemed strange to say no when she had already admitted to being unfaithful now. Sure, it's entirely possible that she wants to make it sound better than it is by claiming it only happened once, but I still chose to believe her. I started eating again. So far, I hadn't completely broken down from anything she had written, but it still hurt a lot. But the worst questions remained to be answered. The risk was that it would get much, much worse. Immediately after came the next text. Who took the first initiative? Her answer,
I guess you mean towards intimacy? That was me. I begged him for it.
she asked him, what does that mean? She wanted it, and it gave him a lump in his stomach. She hadn't been persuaded. It would have felt much better if that were the case. But now it was her beautiful, wonderful wife who had asked for it. My stomach clenched. I couldn't dwell on this for long because the next text came. Have you told him things about me and about us? Her answer,
Yes, we are close friends. I have told him about our relationship and what has happened to us, that we can't have children, and that it was almost impossible for me to get over. He asked about you, how you handled all that, and if you're doing well now that some time has passed since the news. Both he and I have shared our preferences in the bedroom, and I've mentioned that I don't exactly see a way to fulfill certain parts of it with you, even though I would need to. It came out that he had experience with it from previous relationships, and that it's something he might be able to help me with.
this was the most painful text so far. This meant she had shared a lot of details about us. There's no reason to believe he doesn't know everything about our lives now, including our sex life. Is she putting me down in front of him, telling him she thinks I'm worthless in bed? Or is she saying, as she claimed, that she is satisfied but doesn't get all the parts she needs? I had now lost my appetite. I had eaten about half the fish. The butterflies were even worse now than before. Maybe it was because the answers to the worst questions hadn't come in yet. She seemed to have tackled the easier ones first. I didn't wait for someone to come to my table. Instead, I stood up and went to the cashier. There I paid and proceeded to the reception to book another night. I don't think I could handle meeting her yet. I was heading to my room when the phone dinged again. I picked it up and read, have you done things with him that you haven't done with me? Her answer,
Yes, the dynamic I have with Robert is completely different from what you and I have, and therefore most things are different. I am completely submissive to him, and therefore he takes what he wants from me, and I give it to him. But I don't think the details are particularly important. I'm worried they would do more harm than good if I told them. Do you really want to know?
this hurt to read, really hurt. My beautiful wife has given herself to another man, and he has completely different privileges with her than I do. Now I have a bunch of images in my head about what they're up to, and I can't ask for details because it would probably make it even worse. And I can't get the images out of my head either. What do I do now? Before I got an answer to this question, I had the opportunity to simply fantasize that it wasn't so bad. But now that's not possible. I was now in a panic and ran back to my room. I slammed the door shut behind me and lay down in the fetal position on the bed. I started to write a text to her saying I didn't want an answer to the last question, but it came before I could send my message. Have you met him at our home? Her answer,
Yes. We meet there sometimes.
so that was it. She didn't respect what was ours and wanted to meet him for her activities, even at our home. I did one thing I had decided not to do, ask a follow-up question. Why do you meet him at our home? Isn't everything else enough for you? Couldn't you have let what was ours remain ours? It didn't take long before the answer came.
Being conquered in our bed feels exciting because I felt so close to you afterward. I'm sorry it hurts you, but it would be better to talk about this face to face, not over texts.
I sat and read the message over and over again. I couldn't understand her choice of words, and I couldn't understand why she even chose to do it at our home. With all the time they must spend together, shouldn't it be difficult to find another place to be? I wrote back that I didn't think I could continue being married to her. This was too much for me. I wrote that I couldn't imagine a life without her, but that it would probably have to be because I couldn't handle never knowing what she was doing. Back, I first received a message saying,
No. We're not getting divorced. I love you, and I refuse to agree to that.
And then she called. But I didn't answer. She kept calling until the voicemail took the call, and then she called again and again and again. I didn't answer any of them. I was nauseous and sat in the bathroom. Tears streamed down my face. This was the first time I had cried in over 25 years. It was a strange feeling, foreign in some way. She continued to call, and eventually I turned off my phone. I don't know what time it was, and I had no sense of time. I fell asleep and woke up several times during the day-night, and when I finally dragged myself up, it was past 10 in the morning. I was in pain all over. I turned on the phone. I had 20 voicemails and over 100 texts. I never listened to the voicemails, but I read the texts. She told me that she loved me above all else. She hadn't intended to leave me just because she had a lover on the side. On the contrary, it made her love me even more. She also wrote that she could stop meeting him at our home and that she could keep it completely hidden so that I wouldn't notice when these meetings occurred. It would simply be as if it were just the two of us, and what she had with Robert would happen in the background. I would never have to hear anything about it again. And if it was too hard not to know what she was doing, it could also be okay for her to do the exact opposite. Tell me everything. All the details, when the meetings occurred, and how her and Robert's relationship developed. Then I would see that it was more of a physical and mental relationship they had, not a romantic one. I sat there pondering what I wanted. At that moment, I was completely set on getting a divorce. But every time I thought of the word, my stomach clenched. I read through the last texts, and when I was done, another one came. It said,
I've talked to Robert after what happened between us, and he wants to meet you. He wants a chance to meet you and talk to you about what's happened and what he hopes the future will be like. Would you agree to meet him?
I was completely stunned. What does he want to talk about? How he can best satisfy her, that he's better than me, that he's taking over now. I wrote back, what? What are we supposed to talk about? How he'll please you in the future? The only reason to meet him would be to beat his ass. Sophie replied,
No, he wants a chance to talk to you man to man and explain what his intentions are. Right now, your thoughts are racing, and if you get to know him and understand how he is and how he and I feel about each other, your catastrophic thoughts would likely dissipate. If you ask him what he does with me in bed, he will answer that. But darling, only ask if you absolutely want to know.
the fact is, that's exactly what's happening now. My thoughts are racing, and there are certain things I can't get out of my head. Partly it's the intimate things I'm thinking about, but worst of all is actually thinking about her leaving me. Trust is also a problem because I constantly believe she will lie and then go behind my back again. I need to think about it, I wrote back. This is the third part of this series. I have made them in parts so that it doesn't become too long.
If you liked this story, please subscribe and give us a thumbs up. It helps a lot, and you won't miss out on any future stories. Take care and live your best life.